If I were to guess, I would guess that this time of year has got you a little run down. And so to lift your spirits, I have created something really silly and really fun. I want you to go to Instagram right now and send me a DM that's all one word, turkey teacher. Instagram, find me, Amanda, at Muddening Teaching and send me a DM that says turkey teacher, all one word. I'm going to send you a teacher personality quiz with a Thanksgiving twist. That's right. You will find out from this very, very scientific quiz if you are a mashed potato teacher, if you are a turkey teacher, if you are in fact a charcuterie board teacher. I have the insights that you need in order to survive the rest of these kind of final weeks in November. So head over to Instagram right now, find me at Muddening Teaching, and DM me, Turkey Teacher, and let's take the quiz, see if I got it right. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Brave New Teaching. It's Amanda again, and I'm here with this kind of 3-part series, and I have taken over the microphone to deliver these insights to you. And we are focusing in this series on the art of analysis. And I gave kind of a longer intro in the first part of this series. So if you want to go back one episode, you'll find the art of argumentation part 1. That's where we kind of do an overview and then we dive into close reading. That is the strategy that is spotlighted and is featured in the first episode, because to me, that is a foundational way to teach analysis year round. This episode is going to focus on another technique. I actually have 3 different angles kind of using the same general idea. So I've actually got 3 lessons to share with you today, and I want to make sure that I have plenty of time to cover each of them. And today those lessons are going to focus on visual tactics. We're going to focus on our visual learners here today, which is roughly, I'd say probably about 80% of our kids are really benefiting from visual tactics to teach analysis skills. And I know that of the 3 things I have here to share with you today, at least one, if not more, are going to hit home and are going to be easy to use right away. There are resources that you can find that I've made if you need them, but my goal here is to walk you through clearly and directly so that you can just replicate what I'm telling you right into your lesson tomorrow and get going and really kind of see what the benefits are from tapping into the visual side of teaching analysis. I think the only other thing I wanted to remind us of is that the goal here with the word analysis is reminding kids of this phrase, to break apart. This keeps coming. I re-listened to last week's episode and I really wanted to underscore that with you all one more time, because I know how powerful it was for my students. Even just in their own writing, right? They kind of see everything in a blob. A lot of my kids are blobs and they feel like writing the whole mountain has to be done all at once, or it's all connected in a way that I can't get better at one piece or another. When it comes to literary analysis, rhetorical analysis, the first part of analysis is to break apart, take apart the pieces of the text. And so even though I'm not going to talk about it today, sometimes helping kids see this like physically can be really helpful, right? When we talk about analysis, cut things up, right? Group things in different ways. Kids don't have to look at the piece exactly how it exists in reality. Don't have to print out the article as it is. Print out the article and put it into a close reading template. Cut down the article, split up the article, put the article into jigsaw pieces. When we're analyzing, it's okay if things are broken apart. We want to keep breaking them into smaller and smaller pieces. When it comes down to synthesis, that's when we bring everything back together and kind of we work through that world of, what we say about the things that we broke apart. When we break apart, when we analyze, we're looking for patterns, things that are occurring regularly, or we're looking for patterns and then interruptions to those patterns. That's the kind of skill kids can learn. All kids can learn that, regardless of their comprehension skills, regardless of their reading levels. They can understand at face value that when we analyze something, when we take something apart, we're going to find consistencies, and we're going to find inconsistencies. They can do that. And the practice of thinking about analysis as a skill is so, so very important. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode all about visual tactics to teach analysis. Cue the music. You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a teacher from Southern California.
Join us at bravenewteaching.com to find out more about our courses, festivals, and get every episode's show notes.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show.
All right, let's jump into tactic one. Tactic one. So let me kind of categorize these for you a little bit further. So tactic one is one that I would use when you're trying to analyze a large section of text. When we talk about close reading, that's definitely like a medium to small size of a text. We've really cut things down. We're really trying to, narrow the scope. When I categorize this as a big section of text, I'm thinking about like all of part one of a novel or several chapters combined, the exposition, a series of rising actions. We're really zoomed out. So in this type of analysis, we're usually looking at bigger types of things like growth of a character over time, like characterization types of things. Maybe we're looking at changes in the setting or the surroundings. Maybe we're looking at theme. So analysis with a big section of text is usually for big thinking kinds of things. I think that also helps me lesson plan better because I'm not trying to like talk about metaphor while we're looking at 200 pages of text. We can, when we look at metaphor, we can be looking at a medium to small section of text, but for the large, we're going to go for those big things. And the technique here, the tactic, I should say, I like to call map it out. And I literally mean draw a map. So let's give you a concrete example. When I looked at The Grace Year. The Grace Year is a novel that we've talked about a couple times here on the podcast. And I was really thinking about the themes connected to the essential question about which is stronger, hope or fear. Looking at hope and looking at fear as you go through the reading is apparent. It's easy to highlight. It's obvious to see. It comes up frequently, but the analysis part of where these issues come up, where these feelings arise, is a little bit tricky to just get from a chronological reading experience. And so if you are in a similar situation, I think there are a lot of novels that have physical places connected to the way that themes evolve. Drawing a physical map of the story can be incredibly effective. I also I'm going to air quote, I map out chapter 7 of The Great Gatsby. So I can explain that for you in a little bit as well. But when I'm talking about map it out, I mean, let's draw a map. So if we're talking about The Grace Year, the first thing I would have kids do is I would have them draw a map of the town, right? That's the first place that all the characters are, right? They're in their homes. There's this kind of town center. There's a church. There's a punishment tree at the center of town. It's a real dystopian world here. The punishment tree is the center of town. There's a market, and there are kind of all these places that we are introduced to early in the novel. Things happen in each of these places. Thoughts are passed through Tyranny, the main character, through her mind as she's in these different places. And that to me was like, that's it. If kids can see the patterns of how different places on this map are making tyranny feel, we're going to start to see patterns about hope and fear, which places and which institutions are connected to each of those feelings. And so creating a map and then having kids list evidence of hope or fear near the locations where those things are happening is so incredibly powerful. I carried this also into the second part where the girls actually leave for their grace year and they go to an island. This island is where they will um, spend their sentence of that year. Again, on this island, there are a lot of places that carry events, relationships, emotions, all of the things, a lot of them tied to hope and fear. Even some of the places give tyranny flashbacks that are really important to filling out the story. And again, like informing us about the power of hope and fear. There is the water surrounding the island, there's a fence, there's buildings within the compound where the girls must be. There's a woods beyond the fence, and all of these places and all of these things again carry those emotions, relationships, and so on. So by having the students either create the map, or you can give them the map, or give them a rough. Doesn't need to be fancy. I mean, I make all mine on Canva. I just use mostly shapes and then graphic elements. The accuracy doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, if you're inaccurate, all the better for a debate with your students who, find an error on your map, right? Then you can just adjust it for the next year. So don't sweat the creation process. Make something simple, right? A square with some circles and call it a day. Or just like I said, have the kids make the map. But once the map is created, the analysis part is actually listing textual evidence, or just if you don't want to go through the whole evidence debacle, you can just have them listing details as they read connected to those pieces. So how is this visual analysis? Well, if it's not already kind of clicking for you, I want you to picture what a finished product looks like. So in the first scenario, right, we're kind of reading a novel start to finish. We're analyzing the text, we're close reading, and that's great. But when we're trying to analyze theme, right, these ideas of hope and fear as they're connected to their power and the essential question, when students, and even me, I'm talking about myself here too, when I can see hope and fear distributed on a map, I will have so much more to say about those things because it will allow me to recognize patterns. When I see that in the woods, this is where hope is built. This is where things are discovered. Love is found. Even little pieces for survival. Those are all in the woods. And then when I look at let's say the punishment tree, right? Because there's also a punishment tree on the island, right? The punishment tree is where we see things like shame, human body parts, teeth, things like that. We have, all of these different things we're noticing. We can start to connect dots together based on where we're seeing them, because now they're not chronological. They're grouped by place. They're grouped by objects. They're grouped by the visual components of what's on the map. And so that's a great, possible option. It's not every novel that you can do that for, but if you can think of right now a novel that would be really powerful to use a map, I would love for you to tell me if you give this a try. But that's definitely going to be something that helps you break things down. Okay, let's move into something that is more on the small to medium size text scale. So I like to call this a one-pager quote. A one-pager quote is almost exactly what it sounds like. This is nothing fancy. This is really simple. You can use it with any text, nonfiction, fiction, you name it. You can do this. So a one-pager quote has a quote in the middle. I know. It's revolutionary. Absolutely revolutionary. And there are hundreds of different variations on this, but we're going to put the quote in question in the center of the page. This could be all different quotes for each of your students. This could be in small groups. This could be on large butcher paper. This could be digital. This could be on by hand, whatever you want. Text in the center. Text is generally, in this case, like I said, small to medium. So we might have a short description of a setting, right? Maybe we have a single line that is kind of really tripping kids up. Maybe we have a short poem, and that just goes right in the center. Where it becomes visual is when I have the kids use the rest of the space on that page to illustrate each part of that quote. Each part. So every single word or every single noticeable pattern gets its own illustration. So let's take one of my favorite things to do is I love doing this with Shakespeare especially. I think doing this with Shakespeare really gets kids out of their own heads and lets them just see what he's trying to do. When Shakespeare writes, I mean, the whole point is to conjure images in our mind. So let's see what those are. I do this sometimes, not even with a one pager, but just with annotating. Let's draw this phrase out. What does it look like? Famously, I mean, so now I used to dread some of this, but now I look forward to it because I know we're going to have so much fun drawing it. And when we draw the pieces and put them together, the kids get it. And then they have some really insightful things to say. So one of those scenes I can think of right away that's so good for this is Caesar's butchers and sacrificers scene, right? Let us kill him, right? And Brutus is kind of describing the way that Caesar should be killed as if like the method of killing him alleviates the the sin of murder. If we do it delicately and we do it like butchers, we do it really nicely. Or let's do it like sacrificers, excuse me. We're sacrificing his body. We're not butchers. It's not going to be bloody. We're just going to kind of slice them up nice and neat. I think about even things from Romeo and Juliet, right? These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume. The sweetest honey is loathsome in his own deliciousness, and in the taste confounds the appetite. Therefore, love moderately, long love doth so, too swift arrives, as tardy as too slow. That by itself is a terrifying passage. But when we start to draw the violence, the beginning, the end, death, fire, food, appetite, when we start to draw these things out and let kids take their time seeing the pieces, small pieces, they will then be able to, instead of looking at the words to come up with their synthesis or to come up with their final analysis, they can look at the images. They can look at what Shakespeare is saying rather than read it. But we know that in order to draw it, they had to read it. So they were really doing both. And it's an incredible way to get high engagement. And you know what? What I love the most about this is the first step is something everyone can do. Everyone can draw a violent delight, a violent end. They can draw fire, powder. They can draw a kiss. They can draw honey. They can do these little pieces. This is accessible to every single student. We don't need to keep making excuses for whether or not they've read at home, for whether or not they read at this grade level. No, they can do this. They can do these little pieces. I'm telling you, I am all of a sudden, sometimes I wish Marie was here to calm me down. But I am feeling so deeply passionate about this because this is bringing back so many of my feelings of what it was like teaching new English language learners Shakespeare. And how many people told me they can't do it? And I said, absolutely, they can. And they will. And they should. Because it's not about whether or not it's relevant. Relevance is not what we're looking at. It's the brain exercise of doing the work, of learning how to train your brain to do these things and to notice the way that metaphorical language is used in everyday life. I don't want anyone to miss out on that. I really don't want anyone to miss out on the skill part of what it takes to interpret what people are saying. That is so vital to me. But they can do it with Shakespeare. So that's it. That is the one pager quote. I mean, I don't have anything fancy to give you. And the way that I would grade it is that I wouldn't. Just like with close reading, how do you grade it, Amanda? Do you have a rubric, Amanda? You know that I use the same rubric. If I wanted a grade for this exercise, right? If it's an exercise, I don't really want to grade. I want kids to just exercise. If somebody graded me every time I exercised, I would forever stop exercising. I mean, I already hate exercising, and no one's actually grading me except for my own millennial judgmental self. You don't need to grade it. If you want to evaluate it, if you do want to have some kind of, you want to mark progress in this skill work, have them write something that goes with it. So like once they've done the work, like don't grade the drawing, don't grade the one pager, grade the paragraph that corresponds and use the same writing rubric that you always use, because we're always working toward that final, right, putting it all together skill. You don't have to grade everything. You can maybe just grade the evidence. You can maybe just grade the commentary. Maybe you just want to grade the claim. That's the one pager quote. If I'm feeling a little feisty today, listen, it's because I love you and I miss Marie, and I have loved having like this solo series, but I'm telling you, it's tough to do a podcast by yourself when you're normally with a partner. And we are trying to do more on our own so that we can be a little bit more flexible with our family schedule. But I don't know if I'm going to make it through this series without my girl. Okay, here we go. Let's go to our final technique. Our final, I keep calling it techniques. We said tactics. Tactic number 3. Tactic number 3. This one is for very small pieces of text, and I call this the Literary Polaroid. This is one of my signature items that I do sell in my TPT store. You can go check those out. You don't even need to buy it. I'm not here to sell it to you, but if you want to look at the preview that I have online so you can kind of see how it's put together, right? Disclaimer, if you've been here for a while, you know that I will freely share with you every idea, every insight, whatever I can send to you. I will give you all of my ideas, right? That's why we have a podcast. Free advice, free ideas. The only reason I put things online for sale is just the compensation of the time and the work and the expertise that would go into the finalized, ready to go product. So if you would like these Literary Polaroids completely finished, ready to go, lesson plan set, you can print them and not think about it, I think they're like $3. But here's what they are. Here's the free advice. Think about a Polaroid. It's a photo. It's a picture that was taken. I use some pictures that I use with Literary Polaroids are pictures that I've taken. Some of them are stock photos that I purchase online. But the idea is to have a non-conspicuous, ambiguous, I should say, photograph and a series of them. And what I do is I come up with maybe 20 to 30 images. I put them in this kind of little template to make them look like a Polaroid because it's so #retro, and kids, I was born in the 1900s. What can I say? And I will kind of scatter these 20 to 30 photos on the table. No matter where we are in a novel unit, no matter where we are in a lit circle unit, it doesn't matter. I will ask the students, without any other information, to grab a photograph. They grab a photograph. So everyone has one. They're all different. Sometimes they repeat depending on if I have a couple really good ones. I might have multiples. And once they have their photograph, I then say, I need you to find the piece of text in our book, in our poem, in your lit circle book, in the article we read yesterday, whatever the text may be, that best speaks to this image. For older students, that might be all the direction I give them. If I'm really trying to explicitly teach analysis, right? We're at the art of analysis. We're using this visual. I will have them start by breaking down the visual piece. I will ask them to describe the background. I will ask them to describe the foreground. I will have them label a couple of different elements within the photograph. And so I have them actually break apart the image. Look at all the pieces. If they've determined that the background is a peaceful, water, cool color that, brings to mind rest and calm, cool. And the foreground is a hand. The hand is open, and the hand is heavily lined with wrinkles. Okay. Then by the hand, there is a light, and the light is soft. It kind of blends into both the hand and the background, right? I have them go through and label all these pieces. The task then becomes, what is the line or what is the moment from the reading that matches all of those pieces? And so again, it's kind of reinforcing this idea of looking at the pieces and matching the pieces up. If you're going to argue that this line of this poem or this line of the text best matches this image, we have to have analyzed or broken apart both. The claim comes from making the connections between the two. And what I love about this is that when I teach it explicitly like that, I get really good answers because kids are connecting individual pieces rather than kind of making these blanket generalizations. So with older kids, and I give them less instructions, a lot of times the problem becomes, oh, the mood of this picture is peaceful. The mood of this passage is peaceful too. And that's all I get. We never get to how or why or what components of this image or what components of this passage make it peaceful. So when I kind of force them to label the pieces of the image first and then find the text, we kind of see that process of analysis is components, patterns, little pieces make up a whole, and then we can make a claim about that whole. I hope explaining this out loud made sense to you and gives you some inspiration moving forward into teaching analysis. I also hope that it reinforces to you the power of these kinds of lessons with regularity, right? We don't always have to teach analysis at the end of a novel unit. We don't always have to teach analysis with long form types of writing. We can teach the art of analysis, the practice of breaking things down all the time. I also hope that this underscores, or I think the big mission that Marie and I are on, especially in 2025, is just helping teachers find ways to teach these higher order critical thinking skills, especially as we know that more whole length novels are getting harder and harder for teachers to teach. We never will advocate to not teach a whole novel. In fact, we advocate very strongly for regular teaching of whole class novels. However, there are lots of things that are getting in the way, and some of those problems are easier to solve than others. No matter what, we want to give you the no excuses way to teach higher order thinking skills, no matter what's happening with novels and comprehension and book bans and kids reading at home, kids not reading at home, whatever else is going on in your particular school, district, or student season of life. These are the things that you can do no matter what. These are also things that you can do that are highly engaging, easy to prep, and really don't cost you very much in terms of brain power. And they're going to be student-centered kinds of things that you can watch students work. You can watch them work. You can watch their brains grow and evolve. And they're the types of things that you can do over and over again. You can do a literary Polaroid multiple times throughout even one unit, and it's going to be a different lesson each time because the image will be different and the text will be different. You can do a one-pager quote all the time because it's going to be a different quote and a different text every time. Even the map, maybe you can't use a map all the time, but when you do, it's going to cost you, not cost you, that is negatively connotated. It's going to get you a lot of days of deep thinking work that maybe would have originally been spent with reading a novel out loud or something that was more passive. So if you are looking for more student, active, engaging types of things, I hope that these 3 ideas get you going. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm very excited for our last and final part of this series of the art of analysis. I would really appreciate your feedback on this type of a series. Is it too nuanced? Is it way too niche? Or is this really helpful for you to hear something very, very detailed? And I mean, if you're not an ELA teacher, I mean, I hope that you found something helpful here today. But I don't know. I need to know. You need to let us know. So first of all, leave us a review. We want to hear from you, in general, how things are going with the podcast and what you're getting from it. And if you're getting what you need. And then, just an email, a DM, anything small that you want to send our way. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this series in particular so that we know if we should keep going with things that are like this. We would love to tell you. I know I can also pass along for you. Marie would love to know if anyone is deeply interested in, talk about even more niche, in hearing more about her work as a drama teacher and the ongoing experience for her of what it's like to put on multiple productions every semester and quarter at her school. She has been doing incredible work with her kids. They are winning awards left and right. They are performing all over the place all the time. And it's just incredible to watch her work. She is the mama of that department. She is the mama of her own family. And I am just incredibly in awe of all the work that she is doing, putting on her shows. She did Chicago not too long ago. They did an improv show this semester, and they've also done a Dia de los Muertos version of Romeo and Juliet. I mean, this girl is on fire, you guys. So let us know if you want Marie to do a mini series on her theater experience, because I'm sure even if you're not a drama teacher, you might get some good ideas, or you just might get some insight into what that life is like for those teachers and those students. I'm going to stop rambling now. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful week at school, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye. Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here, and have a great week at school.